It started with a whisper. "Mommy, the voice is back." Jamie stood at the foot of our bed in his Star Wars pajamas, rubbing one eye with a chubby fist, his stuffed bear dangling limply from the other hand. My husband, Derek, groaned and rolled over, burying his face into the pillow. It was the third night in a row. I sat up, trying not to let the irritation show. "Sweetie, we've talked about this. There's no voice under your bed." Jamie shook his head, eyes wide. "It talks when the light goes off. It says my name." A chill slid down my spine, not because I believed him, but because he believed it. Kids say creepy things all the time. Monsters in the closet. Shadows in the hallway. It's their way of processing fears, right? That's what the parenting books say. Still, I walked him back to his room. The hall felt colder than usual. "See?" I knelt beside his race car bed and lifted the blanket's edge. "Nothing under here but dust bunnies." Jamie didn't look convinced. He pointed a trembling finger. "It hides when you come in. But it's still there. I hear it breathing." I glanced under the bed again, nothing but dimness and the faint smell of old carpet. "Tell you what," I said, pulling the covers up to his chin. "We'll keep the hallway light on tonight, okay?" He nodded, but didn't smile. Just stared at the gap between his bed and the floor with that same, haunted look. Back in our room, Derek mumbled, "He's gonna be a horror writer one day." I forced a laugh and lay back, but sleep didn't come easy. Somewhere in the quiet, I could almost hear something too, a faint rasp, like dry leaves brushing together. But maybe I just imagined it. Or maybe I didn't. The next night, it escalated. Jamie refused to go to bed at all. He sat curled on the couch, clutching his bear with white-knuckled fists, his eyes flicking toward the hallway every few seconds. "It's louder now," he whispered. "It scratches." Derek sighed. "We can't keep doing this, Em. He's got school in the morning." "I know," I said, but I couldn't bring myself to push Jamie too hard. Not after the way he looked, pale, jumpy, like he hadn't really slept in days. We tried coaxing him. Promised a nightlight. Left the door wide open. I even stayed in the room after tucking him in, sitting in his desk chair until his eyes drooped closed. I didn't hear anything at first. But after 20 minutes of silence, just when I was starting to nod off, I heard it. Scratch. A faint scraping, like fingernails brushing the underside of wood. I froze. The room was dead quiet except for the faint hum of the house settling. Jamie stirred but didn't wake. I leaned slightly forward, peering toward the bed's edge. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was deliberate. Rhythmic. I stood up so fast the chair nearly tipped. I dropped to my knees and yanked up the edge of the blanket, heart thudding. Nothing. Just the same dim space. I reached under, sweeping my hand across the floor. Dust. An old sock. That was it. But as I got back up, something touched my hand. It was cold. Brief. Like fingertips brushing mine in the dark. I staggered backward, breath caught in my throat. My eyes shot to Jamie, still asleep. Peaceful. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Derek, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I had felt. And why I couldn't stop shaking. Jamie woke us screaming. Not the usual cry for attention or nightmares. This was full-throated, primal. Derek was out of bed before I even sat up, sprinting down the hall. I followed close behind. Jamie was standing on his bed, clutching his cheek. Tears streamed down his face, but he wasn't moving, just staring at something on the floor. "It bit me," he sobbed. "It bit me." There was blood on his chin. Not much, but enough to twist my stomach. We calmed him down enough to check. One of his lower baby teeth had been yanked loose. Not naturally. The gum was raw, torn. It must have been loose already, Derek muttered, shaking his head. No, it wasn't, Jamie said through hiccuping breaths. It reached up. From under the bed. It grabbed my face and... Okay, I hushed him. You're safe now. Nothing can hurt you while we're here. He looked at me then, really looked, and said something I haven't been able to forget. You didn't hear it laughing? The words hit me harder than I expected. Because in that moment, I realized I had heard something. A low, breathy chuckle. Faint. So soft I thought it was my imagination. We let him sleep between us that night. He curled into my side like when he was a toddler, trembling even in sleep. In the morning, I went back into his room alone. The sun made everything seem normal again. Until I found it. Lying neatly in the center of the floor, his baby tooth. Perfectly clean. Sitting on a folded piece of paper torn from his coloring book. One word written in crayon. Tasted. After the tooth incident, Jamie wouldn't even enter his room. I didn't blame him. We tried to reason with him, to offer explanations. You had a bad dream, maybe the tooth came out while you were sleeping. The usual adult lies we tell ourselves to keep the world orderly. But the truth clung to me like static. That note wasn't a dream. That tooth hadn't just fallen out. Something had taken it. That night, we moved Jamie's mattress into our room. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a noise. Not the whispering, this was different. A sharp clack, followed by a soft slide. Like a window being opened. I sat up. Jamie was asleep between us, Derek snoring softly beside him. Another sound. A tap tap tap. I crept out of bed and down the hall, every step slower than the last. Jamie's bedroom door stood open. The air felt wrong. Colder. Still. I stepped inside. The window above his desk was wide open. The latch, one of those old brass twist locks, had been snapped clean off. Metal bent. Wood splintered. But the screen? Still in place. Untouched. I stood there for what felt like forever, staring at that broken window. And then I noticed something else. Small handprints. On the inside of the glass. Fingers too thin, smudged against the windowpane, pressed upward from below the frame. Like something had been trying to climb out. Or worse, something had helped it climb in. Derek insisted we were overreacting. It's a loose latch, he said, examining the broken window. Old hardware. Jamie probably opened it earlier and forgot. I wanted to scream at him. Instead, I nodded and didn't argue. That afternoon, while Derek was at work and Jamie napped on the couch, I drove to a little electronics store downtown. Bought one of those cheap digital voice recorders. Small, with a long battery life. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe nothing. Maybe proof that I wasn't going insane. I slipped it under Jamie's bed before dinner. That night, Jamie clung to me until he fell asleep. We laid his mattress back in our room, none of us wanted him alone again. I stayed up until dawn. At 6 a.m., while Derek made coffee and Jamie sat curled with cartoons, I tiptoed into his room and retrieved the recorder. There were 4 hours of silence. Then, 1:42 a.m. A creaking noise. The floorboards shifting, soft. A scrape, cloth against wood. And then it started. A voice. So faint I had to crank the volume, press the speaker to my ear. Not a whisper, exactly. More like a hiss. Slurred. Slippery. Jamie, sleep now, no more running. Then, a giggle. High-pitched and broken, like a child imitating laughter. Don't worry. They don't hear me. I made sure. I dropped the recorder. The voice had paused. Just long enough to sound like it was waiting. Then it said, clear as day. She's listening now. I didn't tell Derek about the recording. What could I say? That something knew I was listening? That it spoke my son's name like a lullaby? Instead, I threw the recorder in the trash and spent the rest of the day pretending everything was fine. But things weren't fine. That night, I found something tucked behind Jamie's toy chest, a length of red string tied into a noose. Small. Child-sized. There were more of them. Knotted bits of string tucked into the radiator, looped around the handle of Jamie's toy truck, even wound tightly around the leg of his stuffed bear. Almost like. I couldn't finish the thought. Jamie hadn't put them there. He hated knots. Would cry if his shoelaces tangled. And these were tight. Expertly done. I collected them all in a Ziploc bag and shoved it in the freezer. Derek still refused to admit anything was wrong. You're feeding into this, he said. Jamie picks up on fear. You keep acting scared, he's going to be scared. That night, Jamie sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the ceiling. He hadn't spoken much all day. Mom, he whispered. I turned from the lamp I just switched off. Yeah, baby? Do you think, if I crawled under the bed and didn't come out, would you come find me? The question froze the air in my lungs. Before I could answer, he added, she says you wouldn't. She says you'd leave me. I climbed into bed beside him, holding him tight. But all night, I couldn't stop picturing it, Jamie crawling into the dark beneath his bed and a pair of hands, thin, pale, reaching out to take him somewhere I couldn't follow. By morning, I was done pretending. Jamie's room wasn't safe. And if Derek wasn't going to believe me, I had to find out what was really going on myself. While Jamie watched cartoons and Derek busied himself with emails, I grabbed a flashlight and went into Jamie's room alone. The floor creaked under my weight. I pulled the bed frame aside, setting it against the wall. Then I crouched and looked underneath. There it was again, that cold breath of air, too strong to come from a sealed room. And something else, a draft, rising up from the floorboards themselves. I tapped the boards. One felt different. Hollow. I pried at the edges with a screwdriver until the plank popped loose with a sharp crack. Beneath it was a narrow space. A crawl space we hadn't known existed. Only about 2 feet deep, stretching the length of the room. Inside, I saw something that made me reel back. A small, yellow blanket. Folded. One of Jamie's, but not his. I recognized it from old photos, he'd outgrown it years ago and we donated it. Yet here it was, as if carefully placed. Beside it sat a row of objects, a pacifier. A toddler shoe. A crumpled sippy cup. And something black and shining. I reached in and pulled it out. A photograph. Faded, damp around the edges. But the image was clear. It was Jamie. Only, not our Jamie. Younger. Maybe 2 years old. He was sitting on the same blanket, crying. A shadow loomed over him, too tall to be Derek, too slender to be me. And its hands were resting on his shoulders. The back of the photo had one word, scrawled in smeared ink. Again. I burned the photo. I didn't care if it was evidence, or if Derek would call me irrational. That thing, whatever it was, didn't deserve to exist on paper. But the damage was done. Jamie grew quieter with each passing hour. He stopped drawing. Stopped asking questions. He stared blankly at the TV, flinching whenever the floor creaked. That night, I made the mistake of closing his bedroom door. Just for a second. Out of habit. I realized it immediately, cold air brushed past my ankles like a breath. I reached for the knob, but it wouldn't turn. Locked. From the inside. I pounded on the door. Jamie? Jamie? No answer. The hallway lights flickered. I jiggled the knob, slammed my shoulder into it. Nothing. From the other side came a sound that hollowed me out, a slow, dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled across carpet. Then Jamie's voice. Quiet. Shaky. She's under the bed again. She's mad this time. I screamed for Derek. He ran up, wild-eyed, and tried the knob. Still locked. Go get my tools, he shouted, panic finally cracking through his disbelief. While he bolted to the garage, I pressed my face to the wood. Jamie, baby, I'm right here. Don't move, okay? Another sound. The giggle. This one was closer. Too close. She said you shouldn't have burned it, Jamie whispered. She says now you have to play. Suddenly the door clicked. It opened on its own. The room was dark. Still. Jamie sat on the edge of the bed, untouched. But beneath the bed, in the space where shadow pooled unnaturally deep, something shifted, away, like it had been waiting, but decided not to act. Not yet. That night, we didn't sleep. And the next morning, the door was gone. The entire doorway. Vanished. As if it had never existed. Jamie's room was just, wall now. We called a contractor. Derek finally admitted something was wrong, though he still wouldn't say the word supernatural. Just kept muttering, structural issue. Hidden room. There's got to be a rational explanation. The contractor arrived that afternoon. His name was Vic. Big guy. Friendly. Not easily rattled. He ran his hands along the drywall where Jamie's bedroom door used to be. Knocked. Tapped. This ain't right, he muttered. You've got a hollow space here, sure. But the dimensions don't add up. He pulled out a stud finder. It blinked erratically the second it touched the wall. Short it out, he said. Never seen it do that. Vic agreed to cut a small section open. We'll patch it if it's just an air pocket or bad insulation, he offered. He carved a clean square with his utility knife. Then froze. His face changed. What is it? I asked. He stepped back slowly. That's not supposed to be there. Inside the wall wasn't framework or pipes. It was wallpaper. Floral. Peeling. Damp. A room. Vic widened the hole. We looked through. There was a tiny space, no larger than a walk-in closet. Child-sized furniture. A tiny rocking chair. A cracked mirror. A stained crib. And in the crib, a doll. Its porcelain face was shattered down the middle, revealing black stuffing inside. One eye dangled by a thread. Its dress was dirty yellow. Familiar. Because it was Jamie's old blanket, cut and stitched into a child-sized gown. Vic stumbled back. Nope. Nope. I don't do haunted crap, he said, backing toward the door. As he left, I noticed something he hadn't seen. Etched into the inside of the cut drywall, just above eye level. She lives in the crawl. She feeds on the ignored. That night, I dreamed in whispers. They slithered through the cracks of my sleep, threading into my mind like vines. Too late, now you'll see her eyes. I woke gasping, heart hammering, drenched in cold sweat. Jamie lay curled between me and Derek, fists clenched around his bear like a lifeline. His lips moved in sleep, whimpering words I couldn't understand. Then I saw it. A single strand of red thread, stretched taut across the hallway floor, vanishing beneath Jamie's bedroom wall, the wall that should have been a door. I followed it. Step by step, the air grew thicker. The thread ran like a vein, dipping under rugs, looping through heating vents, wrapping lightly around chair legs and banister rails like it had grown there. When I reached the end, I realized something that made my skin crawl. It wasn't just thread. It was a trail. She'd been walking the house, leaving strands behind like a spider maps its web, marking territory, building a path, preparing. That night, every mirror in the house fogged over. Every single one. Not from heat or showers. Just fogged. Simultaneously. And when I wiped one clean in the hallway, there was no reflection. Just a smear of pale fingers pressed from the other side. I locked every window. Every door. And yet, around midnight, the thread moved. I watched it inch forward across the hallway like something invisible was pulling it deeper into the wall. When I turned to check on Jamie, he was gone. And the thread was coiling back, as if leading me in. I followed the thread. It slithered beneath the false wall where Jamie's bedroom door used to be. I pressed my hand to the drywall. It felt warm, like breath trapped beneath skin. I pressed harder. It gave. The wall bent inward beneath my palm like rubber, warping until it snapped open with a sharp crack, revealing the hidden room again. Only this time, it was different. The crib was gone. The doll was gone. The air felt alive. Like walking into a mouth just before it swallows. The thread tugged gently at my ankle, pulling me forward into darkness. I whispered Jamie's name. No answer. Then, movement. A flicker in the corner. A figure hunched in the farthest corner of the room, knees bent, head low, arms long and wrong. It wasn't Jamie. It turned toward me. White eyes blinked open across its face. Not two. Not even four. Just more. Eyes on its cheeks, its forehead, its neck. Watching. All watching me. It stood, taller than the room should have allowed, and took a single step forward. Why didn't you listen? It whispered in a chorus of children's voices. Why did you leave her? Her. That's when I saw Jamie. In the mirror. He was inside it, pounding on the glass. Muffled cries. Hands bloodied from trying to break free. His mouth moved soundlessly. The thing saw me look and lunged. I screamed and grabbed the mirror, tearing it from the wall. It shattered between us, glass spraying, light flashing, and suddenly everything was silent. I opened my eyes. The hidden room was gone. The wall was solid again. And in my arms, limp and cold, was Jamie. His eyes fluttered open. Then he whispered, voice trembling. She's mad now. You tried to take me back. Jamie wouldn't speak for hours. He just stared ahead, hollow-eyed, rocking slightly. I wrapped him in blankets, called his name, offered warm milk and gentle songs. Nothing brought him back fully, not until just before dusk, when the shadows stretched across the living room floor like fingers. She said you were too loud, he whispered. She said you ruined the game. I knelt in front of him, holding his tiny hands. What game, Jamie? He looked at me with those tired, knowing eyes, too old for his face. The one where you pretend I'm not real. It helps her feed. I stood so fast I nearly tipped over. Every instinct screamed, burn the house down. Take him. Run. But I didn't. Instead, I returned to his room, the sealed wall, the vanished doorway, the crawlspace. It was all gone. Seamless. A blank wall where nightmares had once breathed. Except one thing had changed. The closet door was open. I know I shut it that morning. Inside was nothing but hangers, old clothes, and a single piece of paper taped to the back wall. It wasn't there yesterday. Child's handwriting. Slanted and shaky. In crayon, red like the thread. It read, Thank you for not listening. She's mine now. Beneath it was a drawing. Stick figures, a boy under a bed. A tall, thin shape crouched beside him, eyes like moons. And beside them, a woman. Me. Smiling. Watching. I showed the drawing to Derek. He stared at it for a long time. Said nothing. Then he folded it up, placed it in the fireplace, and lit a match. We both watched it burn. But that didn't make it stop. That night, Jamie started talking in his sleep. Not mumbling, talking. Clear, steady, in a voice that wasn't his. She needs a name, he said. So she can stay. We sat up in bed, stiff and cold, watching him speak with eyes still shut. If she stays long enough, she becomes, he continued. She lives in the silence between sentences. In the breath between calls for help. She's patient. She's learning your faces. Then his mouth twisted into a smile. Still asleep. She likes you best, Mommy. Derek snapped. Shook Jamie awake, shouted for him to stop. Jamie gasped, wide-eyed, blinking fast. Why are you yelling? He cried. She doesn't like yelling. And from under the bed, our bed this time, we heard a knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps against the wood floor. We froze. Jamie crawled into my lap, shivering. She wants you to name her, he whispered. If you do, she won't hide anymore. I asked him, voice shaking, what happens if I don't? His answer was instant. Certain. Then I stay. And you forget I was ever here. We didn't name her. Not that night. Derek said it was nonsense, just more trauma acting out through Jamie. But I could see the fear in his eyes, the way he kept glancing at the floor, the walls, the closet. As if expecting to find more red thread, or worse, another note. We tried to carry on like normal. That lasted 12 hours. Because the next morning, Jamie didn't come down for breakfast. His mattress was still warm, blankets tangled, his bear on the pillow. But no Jamie. We searched the house. Every room, every crawlspace, the attic, the basement. Nothing. No sound. Not even footprints. I called his name until my voice cracked. Then I saw the photo. On the mantle. Our wedding day. Me and Derek smiling. Holding hands. And beside us. No child. Jamie had been in that photo. Between us. In a tiny blue suit with peanut butter on his collar. But now, there was only empty space. My breath caught. I ran to the fridge, grabbed drawings. His drawings. Gone. Every last one. Replaced by blank sheets, or things I didn't recognize. Derek met me in the hallway, pale as snow. What's wrong? I asked, voice trembling. He blinked. What do you mean? Who's Jamie? My stomach dropped. Our son. He shook his head slowly, confusion deepening. We don't have a kid. That's when I knew. She'd taken him. And the forgetting had already begun. The house is too quiet now. No cartoons in the background. No tiny socks in the laundry. No trace of a child ever living here. I tried to fight it. I dug through boxes in the attic. Tore apart albums. Scoured hospital records, birth certificates, phone backups. Nothing. No Jamie. Even my phone, empty. No pictures. No texts. No contacts named pediatrician or school. It was like he never existed. But I remember. I remember the way he said bear like but. The little gap in his front teeth. The way he whispered don't let go when we crossed the street. And I remember her. She's here now. I see her in the mirror behind me when I'm brushing my teeth, eyes like pale marbles, watching, waiting. I see her in reflections that linger too long after I move. She whispers sometimes. Not to frighten. Not to haunt. To convince. You can have him back, she says. Just a name. Say my name. But I don't know it. Or maybe I do, and she's already made me forget. Some nights, I feel the bed shift behind me. Like a small body climbing in. Tiny arms around my waist. And a whisper in a child's voice. Mommy? But I can't turn around. I won't. Because if I do, and it's not Jamie, I'll forget myself too. I keep a note in my pocket now. Written in my own handwriting, in case I ever slip. You had a son. His name was Jamie. She took him. Don't believe the mirrors. And in the dead of night, I leave out scraps of red thread. So maybe, just maybe, he can find his way back home. The end.